The little girl had barely whispered the word pear when, instantly, piles of pears appeared on the bed. The whole family was completely astonished. The girl thought her new parents would be like those from her previous life, people who would see her as a monster and sell her to a laboratory for experiments. But this family not only didn't treat her like a monster, they called her a little blessing sent from the heavens. The reason she came into this world was because, in her past life, while she was being studied in a laboratory, an accidental explosion caused her to be reborn in ancient times. At that moment, her mother was crying inconsolably, hugging her lifeless body, but suddenly the girl miraculously opened her eyes. The elderly matriarch of the family, overwhelmed with emotion, ordered the eldest boy to kill a chicken to make soup and feed her. The older brother stared at the soup, his mouth watering, but the father explained that his little sister was still weak and needed to recover. The boy nodded maturely, saying that as her older brother, he should let her have the food. Even though the girl could tell the family lived with very few resources, she felt incredibly happy with them. But that night, she was jolted awake by the heat and saw that the house was on fire. She quickly ran to wake her mother and got her out of the house. Once outside, she looked on in horror as the entire village was engulfed in flames. Her mother hugged her tightly, grateful, and told her through tears that she was the family savior. But just then, a neighbor screamed that the girl was a bringer of misfortune and pointed out that she had fainted 3 days earlier and that the fire began as soon as she woke up. The neighbor demanded that the family pay for the damages. As more villagers arrived upon hearing the commotion, the girl began to doubt herself, wondering if she truly brought bad luck. But the elderly woman of the house stepped forward, furious, and shouted that since the neighbor had arrived in the village, nothing but misfortune had occurred, that everyone had grown poorer, and that the fire was also her fault. She even threatened to beat the woman if she dared say again that the girl was cursed. The frightened neighbor fled, and fortunately, a heavy rain put out the fire. However, in the days that followed, the rain didn't stop, and the family began to worry about the lack of food. The girl remembered that she still had many pears in her magical space, so she focused her thoughts, and immediately, piles of pears appeared again. The whole family was amazed. The boy joyfully shouted that his sister was a fairy fallen from the sky. When the rain finally stopped, the girl created another basket full of pears. The next morning, she asked her father to take them to the market to sell and buy food. When he returned, the basket was filled with grains and supplies. The elderly woman initially thought the father had spent the money without permission, but he quickly explained that people were so amazed by the taste of the pears that not only did they buy all of them, they also gifted him food in gratitude. Upon hearing this, the elderly woman smiled, and the family prepared a grand feast to celebrate. But just before they could begin, some officials arrived with an imperial decree. A relative of the family had conspired with outsiders, and as a result, all relatives, including the girl and her adoptive family, were to be exiled. Everyone was in shock upon hearing the sentence. The girl looked at her family and realized they wouldn't be able to reach their assigned destination in time. At that moment, a new plan began to form in her mind.